Just a few days ago, there was an attempted coup against the government of Venezuela. I say coup, maybe it's coup, I don't know, because the entire thing seems a little bit laughable. I mean, not in some senses. People lost their lives, and it was an attempt to overthrow the government of a country, and apparently the US wasn't directly involved. We'll get into that. We're going to have all the details. The story's been out for a few days, but, Nando, I especially wanted to talk about this with you because I was curious, have you been predicting this for some time now?
Oh, yes, this was inevitable. I mean, there was an attempted coup last year in 2019 when a bunch of kind of Venezuelan military people loyal to Juan Guaido, who's the leader of the opposition, sort of attempted to rise up and topple Maduro, but it also crashed and burned
Mm-hmm.
in farcical fashion. But at the time, a lot of countries recognized the Guaido government as the quote unquote legitimate government of Venezuela. So it's only a matter of time before they gave it another shot. And this one is just particularly hilarious. Like it really does feel like a very 2020 story in
Uh-huh.
that it's just the sheer incompetence and farcical nature of it is very much something that is true to our time.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically like a private security contractor who is an ex American military guy. He was a medic in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Started this private security company. Got in contact with some former Venezuelan military guys who are running these training camps in the Colombian desert near the Venezuelan border, and were under the leadership of this kind of old Venezuelan major general who has since been arrested and indicted in New York on drug trafficking charges. you
Wow.
know, and so what they basically trained a group of a few hundred men to basically invade Venezuela and topple the government. I mean, it's just you hear something like this and you're like, what were they thinking?
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like everyone they came in contact with, from some of Trump's personal security guards to leaders of the Venezuelan opposition in Miami, like this guy that runs an arms company out of Miami, who's a Venezuelan dissident. Everyone who just like got a whiff of these guys was like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. And
Yeah.
they went ahead anyway. They were like, it's what it reminds me of? It's kind of like the Fire Fest of coup attempts.
Of coup attempts?
Yeah, where they're like, F it, let's be legends. Let's just do it,
Is it like they say that our entire culture now is reboots? Is this just like the
Yeah.
Bay of Pigs, but like with less of a chance of success?
It really, like, the Bay of Pigs absolutely had a greater chance of success than this thing, because at least the Bay of Pigs, the upper echelons of the U.S. government were actively involved. Like the CIA was actively involved, and
Mm-hmm.
John Kennedy knew about it. The president knew about it.
Yeah.
This seems like they were trying to get in touch with people in the Trump administration, and even the Trump administration was like, no, I don't
Yeah.
really want anything to do with you guys.
Yeah, and look,
So
it seems so farcical. Like it sounds like the plot of a movie, like on Netflix, starring Adam Sandler or something like that. It's obviously incredibly serious, and so I
yeah,
feel sort of bad for laughing about it. Like people lost their lives. What they were attempting to do was incredibly serious. It seems so 2020. Like
yeah,
it's it was 60 people in like little speedboats with 50 additional. The Venezuelan military has 130,000 active duty soldiers and another 220,000 paramilitary loyalists. That
yeah.
is about as big as
Venezuela,
world militaries are.
yeah, it's one of the most heavily armed countries in the world. Like, I mean, that's always been the real tragedy about the situation in Venezuela, is that there's a very real chance of some sort of civil conflict happening. And
Hmm.
if that were the case, it would be unbelievably violent, because there's just a lot of weapons lying around in Venezuela.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people are armed. It wouldn't be just a kind of little skirmish between two militias. Like there's hundreds of thousands of armed people in Venezuela, like ready to fight.
Yeah.
So it would be unbelievably bloody. And like you
Yeah.
said, this is a very serious situation in many ways, and it fits a long-term pattern. I mean, the United States and the CIA supported a coup attempt on Hugo Chavez in 2002 in Venezuela. They actively and vocally supported the 2019 coup attempt through John Bolton and even Trump, and they even recognized the government. So, this is part of an ongoing long-term pattern. And it just the real tragedy is that it on the one hand, like no one loves the Maduro regime. Like there's no love for the Maduro regime. But the Maduro regime has a point.
Really fast.
They say,
you don't have to say that, but at the same time in 2020, you sort of have to acknowledge that.
Obviously. Yeah, if not, you're like an Assadist or a Maduro lover or something. It's like, but when he says like, listen, we're struggling because of U.S. sanctions and because we're constantly under siege by the most powerful nation in the history of the world, he's got a point. Mm-hmm. Like, how can you operate a country in any sort of sane way while you are literally under attack by a country like the United States?
Yeah.
So
we're going to turn in just a second to the potential U.S. involvement, but really fast, I just want to add a couple extra details for potentially signs that this wasn't going to result in these 60 people occupying the royal palace and ruling. One was that they live tweeted the raid. Great idea. They apparently had an airsoft gun. Now, they didn't just have airsoft guns, but they had an airsoft gun.
Right.
And one of the organizers of the raid apparently seems to be a big devotee of the QAnon conspiracy theory, which doesn't necessarily say anything, but also at the same time kind of says some things.
Yeah. No, the Silver Corp, this is the company the private security company that this guy was started. They have an Instagram account, and it is one of the funniest things you could ever. I
didn't see that.
Oh my, John! As soon as this broadcast ends, just fire up the Instagram and look up the Silver Corp Instagram account. Like, it'll be a picture, like a selfie of the guy, as the sun's setting, and he'll be like, the golden hour, and then like hashtag tactical training, hashtag live shooter training, hashtag like, it's truly stuff like that. It's truly spectacular. Like the capture, like it's just the whole thing feels so modern in so many ways.
Wait, hold on.
It's just great. There you go.
Just don't overthrow governments. That seems like a basic rule. It's not one of the commandments, but like arguably should be.
This is why I hesitate to be like, oh, this so-and-so foreign person is so bad, because like what flows from that is this instinct to do something about it. Like if that person's so bad, we have to do something about it. So there is like sometimes like, oh, look at all the suffering, we should do something. But what ends up happening is always the same thing. And you go to war with the military machine you got, and we got the United States military machine. And that is more like a blunt instrument that just shatters like whatever's in its way. It's not like this surgical thing that can achieve sort of narrow goals. Like it usually destabilizes an entire region. Usually a lot of people die, and usually it ends up worse than previous.
Yeah. Like they say, when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Well, when the only tool you have is the most bloated, overfunded military in the history of our civilization, every problem looks like you should bomb it, I guess. The metaphor falls apart. And so does the country that we inflict this on. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.